Imagine a quiet neighborhood in Houston, Texas, where the facade of normalcy hides a horrific secret. On a seemingly ordinary day in June 1965, police officers were called to conduct a welfare check on an elderly couple. What they discovered would shock the nation and become one of the most notorious unsolved murders in American history. Fred and Edwina Rogers, once beloved by their community, were found dismembered and stored in their own refrigerator, a gruesome tableau that left investigators and the public alike reeling in horror. How could such a heinous crime occur in a place that seemed so peaceful? What drove a son to commit such an unimaginable act? As we unravel the chilling details of the Icebox murders, prepare yourself for a story filled with secrets, intrigue, and a mystery that has haunted Houston for decades. On June 23rd, 1965, a worried relative of Fred and Edwina Rogers reached out to the Houston Police Department, prompting them to perform a welfare check on the elderly couple. As officers approached the modest home, they noted an eerie silence that hung heavily in the air, broken only by the creaking of the front door as they entered. Inside, the scene was horrifying. The living room was covered in blood, and a palpable sense of dread filled the house. The officers searched room after room, finding no sign of the couple. It was only when they opened the refrigerator that the full extent of the horror was revealed. Inside, they discovered the dismembered bodies of Fred and Edwina, their remains meticulously stored in plastic bags. The sight was so grotesque that it would haunt those officers for the rest of their lives. There were no signs of forced entry, and nothing appeared to have been stolen, leading investigators to consider the possibility that the killer was someone close to the victims, a deeply unsettling thought that would set the stage for the investigation that followed. How could a family member or someone known to the couple commit such a vile act? This question lingered in the air, fueling the fire of a mystery that would remain unsolved for years. Fred and Edwina Rogers were an ordinary couple who had spent their lives building a home and raising a family. Married for several decades, they embodied the quintessential American dream, at least on the surface. Fred was a retired carpenter known for his craftsmanship and dedication to his work, while Edwina, a former schoolteacher, was well regarded in the community for her warm demeanor and kindness. They had two children, but as time passed, their family dynamics began to shift, leaving them increasingly isolated. In the years leading up to the murders, Fred and Edwina's lives changed dramatically. Their son, Charles, had moved back in with them after struggling to maintain independence as an adult. This transition marked the beginning of a downward spiral in their family life. Charles was an intelligent man, a geophysicist by training, but his genius was overshadowed by eccentricities that distanced him from his parents and the outside world. Over time, he became a recluse, communicating with his parents mainly through notes slipped under doors, as if he were a ghost haunting the very home that once resonated with laughter and love. The couple's reclusive lifestyle became a breeding ground for suspicion. Neighbors noticed the increasing silence from the Rogers household, with few visitors stopping by and little interaction with the outside world. This isolation set the stage for the horrific events that would follow, and it raised troubling questions about Charles' role in their lives and ultimately in their deaths. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that understanding Fred and Edwina's relationship with their son was crucial to unraveling the mystery surrounding their tragic end. Charles Rogers, the couple's only son, was a man cloaked in secrecy and enigma. Despite living in the same house as his parents, he was largely disconnected from their lives. His behavior was peculiar. While he possessed an impressive intellect, his social skills were woefully lacking. Charles communicated almost exclusively through cryptic notes, which he would leave for his parents rather than engaging in direct conversation. This bizarre form of communication created an emotional chasm between him and the couple, leaving them isolated in their own home. Neighbors often described Charles as a strange figure, one who rarely ventured outside. He was known for his intense focus on his studies and his increasingly erratic behavior, which only deepened the mystery surrounding him. As the investigation into the murders unfolded, detectives learned that Charles had a fascination with conspiracy theories and cryptography, raising further questions about his mental state. The police quickly zeroed in on him as a prime suspect in the gruesome killings. His erratic behavior, combined with his proximity to the crime scene, created a chilling portrait of a man who may have harbored dark secrets. Was he a victim of circumstance, or did his reclusive lifestyle hide a more sinister truth? As investigators began to piece together the timeline leading up to the murders, Charles Rogers emerged as a pivotal figure in a case that would remain unsolved for decades, making it clear that understanding his psyche was essential to unraveling the tragedy of his parents' deaths. Charles Rogers was not just an ordinary son, he was a man of intellect and complexity. Born into a middle class family, he excelled academically from an early age, ultimately earning a degree in geophysics. This remarkable achievement led him to a career that occasionally intersected with military and intelligence work. His brilliance was undeniable, but it was overshadowed by his increasingly odd behavior. As he aged, Charles became a recluse, retreating further into the shadows of his mind. While his parents attempted to maintain a semblance of normalcy, Charles's strange quirks began to alienate them and the community. He was known to obsess over conspiracy theories and would often speak in cryptic phrases that puzzled even those closest to him. His reclusive nature was alarming. He rarely left the house, and when he did, it was often at odd hours, avoiding contact with neighbors and family alike. The whispers of concern from the community only grew as his behavior became more eccentric. The most chilling aspect of Charles's story was his sudden disappearance after the murders. Following the grisly discovery of his parents' bodies, he vanished without a trace. No one knew if he had fled, been harmed, or was simply hiding. This disappearance added layers to the mystery as speculation swirled about what had truly happened inside the Rogers home. Was Charles the murderer, or had he been drawn into a darker conspiracy? His background as a highly intelligent individual with potential connections to intelligence agencies only intensified the intrigue surrounding him, leaving investigators and the public to grapple with the unsettling question of what lay behind his disappearance. As investigators began to dissect the horrific scene within the Rogers home, the gruesome nature of the murders became painfully clear. The dismembered bodies of Fred and Edwina Rogers were discovered in a state that was both shocking and perplexing. The crime scene was a chaotic tableau of blood and severed limbs, but what stood out was the meticulousness with which the dismemberment had been performed. Each body part was neatly stored in plastic bags within the refrigerator, suggesting a level of planning and precision that defied the chaos of the act itself. The injuries inflicted on the couple were so expertly executed that investigators theorized the killer likely possessed some form of medical knowledge or training. This revelation led detectives to consider the possibility that the murderer had a background in medicine or a similar field, complicating the investigation further. The details surrounding the crime scene were chilling. Not only were the victims dismembered, but they had also been cleaned up to a degree that made it difficult to ascertain the exact nature of the attack. There were no signs of forced entry, leading investigators to believe that the assailant had either been known to the victims or had gained their trust. The blood-soaked house painted a portrait of a struggle, yet the lack of defensive wounds suggested that Fred and Edwina may not have seen their killer coming. Every element of the crime scene contributed to a growing sense of horror and confusion. The meticulousness of the dismemberment, combined with the absence of evidence pointing to a violent confrontation, made it clear that the case would not only be a challenge to solve, but would also become one of the most disturbing unsolved murders in American history. As investigators delved deeper into the chilling details of the Icebox murders, they faced the daunting task of unraveling the layers of mystery that surrounded the lives and deaths of the Rogers family. As investigators pored over the chilling details of the Icebox murders, the focus shifted to the prime suspect, Charles Rogers, and the mystery surrounding his sudden disappearance. Various theories emerged, each more intriguing and unsettling than the last. Did Charles flee the country to escape the consequences of his actions? Some speculated that he had a plan in place, using his intelligence background to navigate the complexities of a hasty exit. Given the nature of his work, many wondered if he had the resources and connections to slip away unnoticed, perhaps even leveraging ties to military or intelligence circles to disappear completely. Another theory suggested that Charles was involved in something much larger than a mere family dispute. Given his intelligence background and the bizarre behavior leading up to the murders, some proposed that he may have been entangled in covert government work, potentially with the CIA. This idea took root in the minds of many who believed that his eccentricities masked a more profound knowledge of classified operations. Could he have been involved in activities that went against national security, ultimately leading to a fallout with his parents? As whispers of high level conspiracies swirled around the case, the possibility that Charles was a pawn in a larger game became a tantalizing narrative. The allure of conspiracy theories surrounding Charles's disappearance only deepened the mystery. Was he a fugitive hiding from the law, or was he working undercover, trapped in a web of espionage and intrigue? The unanswered questions surrounding his fate fueled speculation, keeping the case alive in public consciousness and igniting the imaginations of amateur sleuths and true crime enthusiasts alike. As the weeks turned into months and the months into years, the investigation into the Icebox murders grew increasingly stagnant. Despite extensive searches, law enforcement was unable to locate Charles Rogers or uncover any concrete evidence tying anyone else to the brutal killings of Fred and Edwina. The lack of leads and tangible results left investigators frustrated and disheartened, transforming what began as a shocking murder case into a haunting mystery that seemed destined to remain unsolved. The media attention surrounding the case dwindled, and the initial public outrage faded, yet the story lingered in the background like an unresolved nightmare. Cold cases often take on a life of their own, and this one was no exception. The bizarre nature of the crime, coupled with the enigmatic figure of Charles Rogers, kept the Icebox murders alive in the realm of true crime lore. Investigators continued to revisit the case intermittently, but each attempt only highlighted the complexities and contradictions that surrounded it. The case's cold status added to its mystique as the absence of answers bred theories and speculation among the public. Could Charles have vanished willingly, or was there a more sinister explanation for his disappearance? Each new theory ignited fresh interest, but the fundamental truth remained elusive, encapsulating the chilling reality that some mysteries are never meant to be solved. The Icebox murders have left an indelible mark on the landscape of true crime. Over half a century has passed since the grisly discovery of Fred and Edwina Rogers' dismembered bodies, yet the case continues to captivate the imagination of those drawn to the macabre and the mysterious. The haunting image of a couple's trust betrayed by their own son resonates deeply, serving as a chilling reminder of the darker aspects of human nature. As time marched on, the case became a symbol of the unsolved, a ghost story woven into the fabric of Houston's history. Documentaries, podcasts, and online discussions have kept the legacy of the Icebox murders alive, transforming it into a cautionary tale about the secrets that lie behind closed doors. Investigators and armchair detectives alike remain drawn to the chilling aspects of the case, seeking closure for a story that has long eluded resolution. Yet, as we reflect on the legacy of Fred, Edwina, and Charles Rogers, we are left with the haunting question: will we ever truly know what happened that fateful day in June 1965? The Icebox murders serve as a stark reminder that some stories remain unfinished, waiting for someone to uncover the truth hidden beneath the surface. As the years pass, the mystery continues to echo, challenging us to confront the shadows of the past and the unresolved tragedies that linger in our collective consciousness.